welcome to another episode of The Deal Room. And today I have Gerhard, and he is the CEO and owner of Selling Power Magazine. There are conferences that he runs. I've been familiar with you, Gerhard, probably without you knowing, for the past 4 years. And that's because I always used to see Chris Beal is now speaking at this, and Connect and Sell
Awesome.
was our first customers. So, Gerhard, I'll hand it over to you. Who are you? What do you do? And why do you do it?
Well, thank you, Shane, for inviting me. And if anybody's out there listening, you need Connect and Sell to have more conversations with your customers because if you're not using Connect and Sell, your BDRs are working way too hard.
Wow. Chris is going to love that. So,
But but the second best idea is to go to sellingpower.com and get a 1 year free subscription. We have a special code for you. So check out sellingpower.com. I started Selling Power Magazine on a shoestring budget 40 years ago, and I built it up to the largest sales management magazine in the country. And in 1999, Prime Media offered me $10.5 million to buy the company, and I did not sell because I'm not in this for the money. I am in this business to help salespeople and sales leaders win more customers. And that's what my game is all about. I want to help you win. And I've interviewed so many leaders like you. I've interviewed people like, Arnold or Donald Trump and
what?
General.
No way.
Yeah,
Are you serious?
yeah. Mark Benioff, lot of Michael Dell and Jay Leno,
Holy
Jeannie Rometty,
smokes.
Mary Kay Ash, Zig Ziglar, Dr. Dennis Waitley, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. I mean, that's way back in the 80s. I remember doing an interview, traveling to New York and interviewing the number one guru of positive thinking. And he, like everybody else, is just a regular human being with problems. And Dr. Peale said, problems are inevitable in life, and you better get used to it because he says the only people I've ever known to have no problems are in the cemetery.
That's a good way to put it, right? It's very true. And that's where most of what I think that they say also, that's where most ideas are buried, in the cemetery.
Yeah, and I think the a problem is really just a wake up call for creativity, for generativity, and that's the thing that fascinates me, that we need to change faster because if we are ahead of the change curve, we're gonna win, and if
Hmm.
we are behind, we're gonna lose. And everything changes except our willingness and ability to change.
So, what do you recommend people do to increase their willingness to change?
Well, I think that one thing is to have closure because so many people have an excuse to say there's so much unfinished business. I cannot devote time on a new project, which is change, because they haven't finished the old changes. And to me, unfinished business is always remembered longer. So if you come to closure, then you can be more open to change. It's actually very simple. Every night you go to bed, you create a routine where you write down the three things you're grateful for that happened today. So you have a gratitude journal, but at the same time, you write three things down that you need to do the next day so you can wake up prepared for the new day.
That kind of planning and preparation, I've heard journaling is a very, very effective way to, number one, monitor your journey and track it, but number two, to have those realizations that do encourage or empower change. And I want to ask you on just the point that you mentioned on closure. And my understanding of closure in business is the completion of tasks, the completion of outstanding tasks. It's the completion
Yeah,
of
but
emotion that
there's
leads to finish,
yeah,
right?
there's something I need to specify. Um, we live in a culture where we spend 3.5 hours every day on social media. And
Yep.
social media is all about next, 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 next. Watch the next TikTok. Watch the next, LinkedIn video or the YouTube video. Um, and that creates a state of mind where there's always something new to be tackled with by your brain. And by closure, I mean to move from the next state to the now state. And we can do an exercise right now. We can go and focus on the now, which is close your eyes for a moment and think about nothing for a second and listen to my voice and say to yourself, I'm aware of my body.
I'm aware
I'm
of my
aware of
body
my body. And I'm letting go of all my tensions.
and I'm letting go of all my tensions.
And are you connected with the now?
I believe one thing about myself and my journey is being present. So I was part of a Scientology program. I'm not sure how familiar you are with you familiar with Scientology?
Oh, yeah.
I was part of a Scientology program, part of a rehab that I had to go to 17 years ago. Opiate addiction, typical kind of addiction in New Jersey after a leg surgery, and I had to go to a Scientology rehab. And being present was the theme of every single module that you have to go through every month. And every time I came to an adverse situation in my life, being present was the only thing that helped me sane, help me stay sane. And I just recently heard a great line. When you live in regret, you're living in the past. When you live in the future, you're living in anxiety. But when you're present, you're in the now. And whenever a time is tough, if you just look, well, let me just look at right now and this very moment right now. How are things? While I'm in the room, I'm speaking to Gerhard. I have food, I have electricity, heat, everything I want. Life is fantastic. But some people will always focus on the problem. So, how do you kind of uh, suggest, educate people to become more present if they are always living in regret or anxiousness?
I think it's about managing your thoughts. I want to go back to Dr. Peel, who taught me that the fact that birds are flying over your head should not prevent you from allowing them to build a nest in your hair. And that analogy was to illustrate that the thoughts that are circulating in your head are like birds, and you can allow them to land and build a nest, or you can shoo them away. And that was sort of one data point. But then I got exposed to a lot of other smart people that study mindfulness. And there's Kornfeld. He's a brilliant guy. Uh, he cited in a speech uh, a study by NIH where they discovered that we experience about 60,000 thoughts a day.
Oh, wow.
And 80% of those thoughts are negative. So our brain is wired to create a lot of negative thoughts. So now we have a choice. We can either accept those thoughts and repeat those thoughts and multiply those thoughts, or we can accept those thoughts for what they are and don't amplify them and just let them dissolve. So there's an exercise which is imagine your mind is like a guest house, and you, the owner of the guest house, and the thoughts are your guests. So if you treat a thought as a guest that comes and into your house, you don't have to fight that thought, even if it looks mean. You can allow and accept that thought in your living room and say, sit down and uh, and have a conversation with that thought, where you can just listen and say, where do you come from? And where are you going? And you know that thoughts are not permanent. Uh, you can allow the thoughts to express themselves fully, frankly, and freely. And when they're done, they disappear.
So I want to ask you, there's always a realization in your life where you come to understand a concept like allowing your thoughts to just be present. And I think that's one of the hardest battles. The way my life coach told me, she said, imagine yourself where you have feelings and emotions, they're just clouds. What happens to clouds? They eventually go away, exactly the same as your emotions. That was a pivotal moment in my life. And for you, you've been through an incredible journey. At what point in your life did you start to actually understand this concept?
Well, I think we are the result of multiple teachers and multiple mentors. And I've had so many conversations with very bright people that have studied, like Dr. Dennis Waitley. He has written a book called The Psychology of Winning. He has developed one of the most successful cassette programs by Nightingale Conant, and millions have been sold. And he, uh, has so many interesting stories about how the mind works. I've interviewed psychiatrists and psychologists, and one of them was a Harvard Business School professor, Dr. Abraham Zalesnik, and he was an expert in disappointment. And he said that disappointment can reset somebody's life in a very positive way, like your experience with drugs and addiction, where you finally come to the realization that there's a more powerful force out there and you need help.
Yep.
And you need to be able to put yourself in a position of vulnerability where say, I cannot do this alone.
Mm-hmm.
And once you make those connections, then the dialogue in your mind changes. So I found through that conversation that disappointment is really, it can be the cradle of ambition. It can also be a source of depression. When
Yep.
people get disappointed, they may have suicidal thoughts, and that's when people really need help and reach out to people that do not have that uh, urge to self-destruct. And they need help, and there's a lot of help available, and in the form of therapy, in the form of medication. And what pains me is, there's a place where I go for a walk almost on a daily basis, and it's near a lake, and there's a little sign that talks about Tyler. Tyler was a 16-year-old teenager who got depressed and he didn't get help and jumped in the lake and committed suicide. And there were a lot of 16-year-old kids on the lake for a while, uh, you know, creating a memento for him and celebrating his life and thinking about him. And I talked to them, and what I found in this conversation that he was loved, he was supported by people, but he was unable to listen to them. He thought that his voice was more powerful and more important, and he self-destructed. And he was disappointed because it's my theory based on the conversation that he come from a dysfunctional family. His parents have split
Mhm.
up, and he did not have a good role model. He didn't have good teachers. He only had his peer group, but it wasn't enough. And you know, we can say all we want about managing ourselves, but for many people, they cannot self-manage, and they need help, and they need to engage in conversations, and they need directions, they need goals, they need supporters, they need accountability buddies, and they need more love to get through the difficult times. And once disappointment is resolved uh, in the right way, like in your way, then it becomes the cradle of ambition.
Oh my
Then it
God,
becomes that
100%.
that growth. Exactly, becomes that growth catalyst that you need to get out of it, get to the next level, and get to a higher level of functioning. And to me, the success in life is all about the right mindset, the right skill set, and the right tool set. And the mindset is managed by the prefrontal cortex. That's where your inner CEO resides. That's where you make the decision, where you are feeling responsible for your life and that of other people as well. And anybody can step up to that inner CEO role and strengthen that role and become the authority over your life, but that authority also includes the ability to be humble and not just be hungry. And that humility to recognize you can't do it alone. We all in this together, and together we win as a team globally. And once you have that right mindset, you become unstoppable.
That's definitely gonna have to be a clip that we're gonna put on with the Rocky music and everything because it hits right home. So I want to ask if you can remember this. What year was it that this made sense in your life? Was it 1 year ago? Was it 10 years ago? 20,
No, no,
30?
I think that was there's not a specific date. I think that ideas take time to coalesce. When you hear the idea for the first time, it's like a stranger. You're not used to it. And so when I interviewed Zig Ziglar or Mary Kay or Dr. Ken Cooper and Dr. Norman Vincent Peale in the 80s, or W. Clement Stone,
Okay.
it was a revelation that those I thought those ideas exist. That is amazing. That's a different way of thinking.
That's what I mean.
And and to me, thinking is an experimental form of action. Thinking is very cheap, but action is expensive. So if you think more before you act and how you act and think about your goals and what you want to achieve, um, then your life changes. I think the minute you write down your goals and put them in writing, then you have a better chance of moving from a state of what Zig Ziglar calls a wandering generality to becoming a meaningful specific. So you define yourself by writing down your goals, and once you define yourself, you can refine yourself.
I agree. I agree. And one thing I'm always so curious to know when I meet somebody that is number one, a business owner, an entrepreneur, a founder, creative, a visionary. I always wonder why. Why sales? Why selling power? Why did you get into this?
Well, I can tell you, I'm pretty clear about that. My grandmother had a country in Austria near Salzburg, and so that was kind of a poor community, farmers and you know laborers that came to her guest house, had a beer or had a snack, and then went out in the fields and worked. And she was really amazing because she had great social skills, made everybody feel comfortable, treated everybody like a special guest. made sure that everybody had fun and had a good time. So when people came in, she had 3 rows of tables. They filled up one table, and if somebody else came in, then she pulled a couple of people from that table to the second table, so they had company. They wouldn't sit alone. And there was a table for the fine people, meaning the teacher or the doctor or the priest. Um, there was a smaller table for those people that had actually a tablecloth, and they drank wine, and they talked about Goethe and Schopenhauer and literature, uh, and the conversations uh, among the farmers, they were different. Talked about their cattle and the weather, and the hard labor and the hard work, and they had always jokes, and they had a good time. And my grandmother and I, we had a lot of conversations. And one rainy day, there was nobody in the country inn. We were sitting at the windowsill, and I was looking out, and looked at the river, and I said, "By the way, where did this river go?" And she says, "Well, it goes to a bigger river, the Salzach River." And I said, "Where does that river go?" "Oh, that goes into the Danube." And the Danube, where does that go? The Danube is much bigger. It goes to Vienna, and then it goes to the Black Sea. I said, "What's the Black Sea?" "Well, it's almost like an ocean. It's really huge." "And where does that go?" "Oh, that goes to the Atlantic Ocean."
Hmm.
"Wow. And what's the other?" "Oh, that's really, really, really big." "And what's on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean?" And she said, "That's America." And I said, "So if I put a boat in this little river, then I go to the Salzach, go to the
Wow.
Danube, go to the Black Sea, go to the Atlantic Ocean, and then I'm gonna be in America?" And she said, "Yeah, technically it would, theoretically it would be possible.
Yeah.
Technically it would be a little difficult." But and I said, "That's where I want to go." And I remember as a 9-year-old, I wrote down 3 goals. The first one was that I wanted to have a business like my grandfather, and I want to be my own boss. The second was a hot dog stand. For some reason, I liked hot dogs as a kid, and I thought the hot dog stands were the coolest thing. And the third was having a newspaper. And the reason I thought a newspaper, because everybody came to this country inn, they read the local newspaper. And my grandmother always had a few copies, and they said, "Where the news? What's new?" And they talked about the news. And we had no television, we had no telephone, and I thought newspaper is the coolest thing. And when I started my own business, I started out as a sales training consultant, and and out of that came the idea of creating a newspaper to sell my sales training kit that I sold. And I had a 2-page ad in the nursepaper, and then people called me and said, "I want more of those newspapers." It was really an advertising piece, but I had really good articles about selling skills and sales training. And I think at first go around, people bought like 2,000 copies of my direct mail piece. And then I realized that I had the idea of a publication, a periodical that gets subscription. And then I asked for subscriptions with the next issue. And then I said, "Send me $12, get 6 issues a year." And I got like 1,200 paid subscribers within 6 weeks. And by the end of the year, it's 7,500. And by the end of that year, 90% of them renewed. And then slowly grew from newsprint to glossy magazine. And then we had newsstand distribution. We put it in the back seats of every United Airline plane in the world. We had a cover story with 4 Seasons with Isadora Sharp. He's like 93 now. He bought 75,000 copies of the magazine, put the copy in every 4 Seasons hotel around the world. We had Mark Benioff as a cover story when he started his business, and he bought the back cover as an ad. And in a short time after he ran the ad, he got a call from General Motors, and they bought $82 million worth of Salesforce services in the first year. And and he was nice enough to invite me to the New York Stock Exchange when he went public in 1999, and I was the only member of the press to ring the bell with him and his team. It was an amazing experience,
Holy cow! You rang the bell with Mark Benioff when he went public.
right?
Oh my gosh, that is all right. So the question I was gonna ask was, "What's your biggest milestone or success?" And that
I
goes
think that
that's
I
right up
had
there with
one, yeah, I had one day where I was in Dallas and I was at a Peter Lowe seminar. It was a success seminar, and Zig Ziglar was speaking, General Norman Schwarzkopf was speaking, Roger Staubach was speaking, and George Bush 41. And uh, I remember I had breakfast with Zig Ziglar, and I knew him. I had done a couple of stories already. I had lunch with Roger Staubach and Norman Schwarzkopf, and then I was invited to a private dinner with George Bush 41. And there were only 8 people at that private dinner in a private dining room. And I could have pinched myself. I thought, I'm here with the former president of the United States. And it was an amazing experience, a very um, smart, down to earth individual, a giant in my mind. And then I send him a thank you note, and I also sent him a copy of my book. I've written 16 books on
what?
sales and sales management,
Holy crap!
and he sent me a personal thank you note saying thank you for sending me this book. I treasure that, and it goes into my presidential library, which was amazing. A handwritten note from George Bush 41. And you know, I the other highlight was really when I met Bill Clinton. I was in at the Doral in Miami, which is now owned by Donald Trump, and I gave a speech during lunch. And after the speech, and there were about 300 salespeople, was a sales kickoff. The entrepreneur that ran it had donated money to Bill Clinton and had him as a dinner speaker. And after lunch, he says, "Do you play golf?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "You want to play around with Bill Clinton?" And I said, "What?" He said, "Go and suit up." Of course I do. So we went to I got in my golf attire, and we went outside, and a limo pulled up and Secret Service and everything. And Bill Clinton stepped out and said hello. And then we went to the clubhouse, got the clubs, and there were 2 Secret Service agents in the cart ahead of us, and then Bill and the entrepreneur. And I was in a cart by myself, and then there were 2 more Secret Service agents in the back, and we went to the first tee and kicked off, and had an amazing time. And people were swarming over where once the word got out, and other people were looking, and it was actually a fun experience because I remember I was sort of shooting over the green at the second hole, and then uh, kicking the ball to the other side. It was really horrible. I think I got a 9 on that hole. I totally blew up. And then Bill said, "Gal, come on over," and he says, "Give me the club and now pull it away from me." And it was easy to pull away. And he said, "You are gripping it too hard." And I said, "Have you ever played with a former president before?" And it it was. He says, "Relax. We're just here to to have fun, and it got better. The next hole, I parked the next hole, and then he pulled out a new driver, and I said, "That looks really illegal." He says, "Well, I got this from the Japanese Prime Minister. That I really treasure that." And he says, "You want to try it? You want to try it? Give it a shot." And I said, "Sure." So I sort of lined up my ball with the driver, and I pulled it up just a little bit just to feel the weight. He says, "Don't pick up the club. It's not a woman."
Wow. So how did that day end?
It was a lot of fun. Uh, he gave a wonderful speech, and people loved him. He signed autographs. He signed my golf ball, which now I realize is a memorability. It's worth like $1,600. A golf club just signed by Bill Clinton. But I also got invited to the Clinton Global Initiative, and that was probably the most incredible experience of my life. Where uh, I had on the first day, doing lunch, I met a guy from the uh, Clinton Global Initiative, but he also was in charge of the Chicago Climate Exchange, and he was in the Clinton administration. It was a very bright guy, and I said, "What do you do?" And he says, "Well, I'm raising funds for the UN for global warming." And I said, how many funds? How much money do you have?" And he says, "Well, uh, close to $500 million." And I said, "Well, what are you going to do with it?" And he said that the reason I'm here is I want to find investment opportunities. So if you know anybody, let me know. So we are all here to network. And he says sometimes at the UN, we have projects and no money, and sometimes we have money and no projects. And I sort of filed this away. And then in the early afternoon, you go to breakout sessions. So and I sit at the table, and I usually go to the front, uh, and it was about poverty. We had to generate ideas, and those ideas were then funneled to the back, and then they created a slide presentation and then presented it to everybody. So it was really an interesting format. And I go and sit down at the table and look around, and I look to my left, and here's Oprah, and look to my right, here's Gail. Uh, then I look the other side, and here is Maya Angelou, and the president of the Rockefeller Foundation. I was at the table with 8 people, and probably a Japanese. Uh, she was, I think, minister of interior, um, and a wonderful lady, and and there was a moderator from a university, and Oprah said, "I don't want to moderate. I want to participate like everybody else." And I thought, "Who am I?" And everybody introduced themselves. I'm the publisher of Selling Power. So I they all assumed I was like an energy publication, not a sales publication. I felt like a fish out of water, but I remember somebody once said, when you're in a room full of people, uh, you want to blend in and be like them, and nobody will know that you don't belong there, but it's also a mindset. And and as the conversation started, it was so incredible. Everybody was talking about poverty, and Maya Angelou said, "Poverty is really the result of poverty of spirit." And it was really deep. It started deep, and Oprah talked about her villages in Africa, and how we are not here in this life to be takers, but to be givers, and
Course.
to give back. And that is something I wrote later about leadership. That good leaders They're not in business to build up their egos, but to serve. And I believe in servant leadership. And I walked away with so many amazing ideas. And then I got a selfie with Oprah that Gail took, and she was absolutely wonderful. And I learned so much about how amazing people can be uh, when they give back to society in a very generous, selfless way. And after that session, I went into a global warming session, and I found myself at a table where there was the Secretary of State of the Dominican Republic, the Foreign Minister of the Dominican Republic, and a few other people I don't remember. And they voted me to be the moderator. Um, and I thought, why not?
That's the
I've
attitude.
moderated panels before, so I said, you in the Dominican Republic, our theme is global warming. What are you contributing to the cause? What plans do you have at this point? And I had a little, had I thought about this, this was really incredible because they said, well, we are working on replacing our coal firing plants, and we just went to Kuwait, and we are going to have we signed an agreement to buy X million dollars worth of natural gas because the emissions going to be cut down by 38% compared to the old coal firing plants. And I said, that's great. So I said, what's holding you back from, uh, completing that project? I was like a salesman at this point. And, and they said, well, we need about 100 million and we don't have the money. And I said, well, let me check. Maybe I can do something for you. So I looked around and I thought, "Where's Richard?" I saw him at lunch and we talked about this. So I found him and I said, "Richard, come on over." And sure enough, he came instantly. I pulled him away from the table, introduced them to the Secretary of State of the Dominican Republic, and they hit it off. And they were so grateful that after the session, they introduced me to the president, Fernandez, and he was on stage actually with Bill Clinton, and so they brought me up there, and Bill said, "Hello, Gerhard," and the president Fernandez was very gracious, and it says, "Well, thank you for helping us out. This is very generous of you. Um, have you ever been to the Dominican Republic?" And I said, "No." And he says, "You have to come. You have to come and visit."
Have you gone?
I know I didn't, but I was CC'd on every correspondence for the next 2 years with between them, and collaborating and building their plant. So I've felt I have contributed in a small way to global warming.
Well, look, that's a quite a story. So that just in terms of the journey that you've been on, it seems to have started uh, from a belief at a very young age, at 9 years old, that I want to be in this place. You had a dream, and then there was a bridge to make that dream happen. And
Yeah,
what I've got is that was the point of you becoming a sales training consultant before you built the magazine. And that's quite interesting
yeah,
because they always say every single person that goes on to a journey of being a CEO or a business owner or quite a powerful leader, with earning potentials being one of the main catalysts, it comes from sales. So what was the thing that caught your attention at, I'm guessing you was in your late teens or 20s, where you said you found an ad and you said, I want to go ahead and do this. I'm going to give this a try. This is the first thing I want to
yeah.
do.
I think that was one experience that was also pivotal for me, which is that I was in an amateur theater, and I was a shy kid. And when I was 17 or 18, I was on stage and I could hold the audience's attention. And there were 300 people in the audience. And the first line that I had in that play gave me a laugh. So what more could I ask for as a kid who had no self-confidence to have 300 people laughing at what I'm saying? And at the end of the first play ever, some kids walked up to me and said, "Can I have your autograph?" So I felt I had something in me that was special. And that made the difference to me. And then I took that experience and when I did sales training, I thought I will help salespeople with theater techniques to impersonate a professional until they become professional. So
Wow.
I had them rehearse. Arnold, I'm just reading his book. He talks about the repetitions. So when he went to the gym, he did more reps and do it more pain than any other athlete and any other bodybuilder. And it's the pain is really the the pathway to success. You need to go through the pain,
Mm-hmm.
like you have gone through the pain of
Yep.
being addicted, and then now you have the Phoenix syndrome. You're reborn,
Yep.
and it's the same with selling skills. You have to go through the pain of discovering that you're not as good as you think you are, and and once you let go of that illusion that you're really the best, you turn into a beginner's mind. You learn something fresh, and then you transform and change to a higher level of functioning. And to me, the goal of a peak performance mindset is all about uh, developing a a better physical self, a better mental self, and a better financial self. So it's all about cognitive functioning, psychological functioning, and financial functioning.
I I've not met anybody who's put it into such a unique way. And one thing I caught as you was mentioning that was Phoenix syndrome. And I believe there's a big amount of humility that comes from thinking you're the best, being humbled, and then becoming that type of servant leader. For those who don't know what Phoenix syndrome is, how would you explain it in one sentence?
Well, the phoenix bird rose from the ashes, and we all have moments in life where we crash and burn, not physically, but
Mm.
mentally,
Yep.
where we admit that we are all very, very vulnerable. And I remember interviewing a guy who wrote the book Tough Minded Management, Joe Batten. And he said that vulnerability makes you invincible. Once you admit that you are vulnerable, that we're all very, very vulnerable, you know, to a lot of uh, adversity in life. But once we admit that, then we become stronger because nobody is going to attack you if you admit that you're vulnerable. So to me, the humble leader, the humble servant, um, gets a lot more followers than the leaders that push authority.
You're absolutely right. So we've covered a lot of ground on the who, the what, the why, and I think the impact it has on people on this journey is profound. So before I want you to answer two questions, which is how do you think AI is shaping our industry? What are your predictions for this year? But for those that are at a moment in their lives where they're seeing this, then maybe they're in a job, they want to go through entrepreneurship or taking a step further, they're at a place of adversity. Where is the first place they start to reground themselves and start to position themselves in the place of strength to start experiencing like some of the things that you have become familiar to as you've gone through your career. What's their starting point from adversity? I'm struggling. I need a way. I need the key. There's no silver bullet. I need a way out. Where do they start?
Well, I think that Warren Buffett said it best. He said, write down 100 goals of what you want out of life, and then go through that list and eliminate 97 of them.
That
So
sounds like
then,
so much fun.
then you have clarity about what you want. And to me, you need a goal, but also you need the why behind the goal. So right next to the goal, why do you want what you want? Because the bigger the why, the bigger the try, the easier the how.
Wow, that's a great way to put it. So, what are your predictions for this year, then, Gerhard? We are in a pivotal moment in our industry. I've been reading Gartner's reports for the past few weeks, based on you've met the mega team now, and we're seeing AI bots, we're seeing predictive sales analytics, content personalization with AI. I'm hosting a roundtable in 2 weeks, and then another 2 weeks after that on AI and ethics and the use of AI
Right.
ethically in sales and marketing, which filled up in 7 hours. So it seems to be a very hot topic. What are you
Yeah, we
predicting? Go on.
yeah we created an AI for sales newsletter. We had an AI for sales summit in December. We are having a sales transformation summit in March. That's a virtual summit. So if you go to
Mhm.
sellingpower.com, you learn about that.
Mhm.
And for anybody who does not believe that AI is serious, just look at the stock of NVIDIA. Uh, their market cap uh, was over $1 trillion at I think in December, and now it is today at $1.4 trillion. And there are
Wow.
companies, you know, Inflection AI is an example. They only had 50 employees, and they recently raised $1.5 billion on a market valuation of $4 billion. OpenAI has 1,000 employees, and they're valued at $80 billion. So in sales, there's going to be more and more. I've identified over 200 AI solutions. We are going to publish the top 50 AI solutions for sales very shortly, probably March 1.
Mhm.
And and there's going to be a lot more, tools for lead generation, for communicating on LinkedIn, for interactive sales training. Like there's Second Nature, or Pitch Monster, or Go Practice, or Avantex. Those are just four tools for business simulation and sales training rehearsal. You automate RFP with Lupio, or you have amazing virtual agents when incoming calls come, where goodcall.com or gosameday.com, they answer the phone, they make appointments. Um, there is a lot of the ethical issues, because there is fake AI, where you can use somebody's voice. You know,
There are people
yeah,
robbing grandmothers, robbing old women, and like grandparents. And they're basically what they're doing is they're having the grandchild call and say, "Hey, I'm in a trap, or
yeah,
I'm in
exactly. Yeah,
trouble. Please wire me the money." And they're getting off with it. And it's that part. I hear the horror stories, and I feel like sometimes they
right,
inject them into society to make some small groups fearful of what AI can do.
right.
Look,
And,
there
and
are
there's
real
there's
cases, but
I just learned yesterday about an AI app that teenagers are buying. Everybody wants to have that app on their phone, where they take a picture of a girl and then wipe uh, with a finger on the screen, and then the girl turns into a nude.
Oh my gosh. There's ton. I've got the AI one of like you upload a few of your pictures, and it gave me 200 portrait style pictures of me. And again, you can filter and change the face and do all kinds. You can make us.
Right.
I'm
Right.
quite fat right now and overweight, but I can make myself look like I have a six pack, and it's insane. Now,
Yeah.
before
So
before gone,
it becomes a fake world that can be dangerous and harmful to a lot of people, and lawmakers haven't caught up to it. They need to wake up and understand the full dimensions of what can be done. And you know, I'm optimistic because I see a tremendous opportunity. I love the ethical AI, ChatGPT 4 or InVideo.io, where you give it a voice command and it creates a 2 minute, let's say, training video. I like Evi AI for LinkedIn communication. I like Punchlines.ai, where you have the beginning of a joke and say, a robot walks into a bar, and then give me the punchline. And the punchline may be, sorry, we are not serving robots. And the robot says, I'm not here to drink. I'm here to replace you.
wow. So I want to ask you very quickly on
Hey,
Nvidia. There
I'm
are some
I'm
people.
afraid,
Gone.
Shane, I think we need to continue this. I need to jump on another call,
No worries. I think
but
we were just getting again. This is what I mean. Like some of these, they go so far down a journey where we will have to have another one. So I'll send you the final copy of this, and I'll ping you a few text messages. But
awesome.
yeah, there's a few cool things going on. I'll speak to you in a bit, Gerhard. Thank you again for